Hello and welcome to the 8T Center at TC&J. This webinar series is facilitated by Kate Flaxman. Kate is an Augmentative Communication Specialist with Advancing Opportunities. She has been practicing as a speech and language pathologist for over 17 years. She has had a diversified experience working with individuals with complex communication needs who benefit from AAC in early intervention, schools, adult placement settings, and employment. She strives to promote communication for the purpose of improving lives through interactions with parents, peers, caregivers, school personnel, and community members. This is part 1. These webinars are made possible through our partnership with the New Jersey Department of Education Office of Special Education. The statements issued by guest presenters do not reflect the stance of the NJDOE OSC. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Let's listen to Kate.
Hi, my name is Kate Flaxman, and I will be talking with you today about literacy instruction for individuals with significant disabilities. My background is that I am a speech language pathologist who has been working in the fields of augmentative and alternative communication for over 16 years. I have a passion for working with individuals who have complex bodies, and literacy is an extension of communication because if you are literate, you can communicate whatever you want. So let's define literacy. What is literacy? The ability to read and write, as per the Oxford Dictionary. The National Literacy Trust further defines it as the word literacy is defined as the ability to read, write, speak, and listen in a way that lets us communicate effectively and make sense of the world. In the book Comprehensive Literacy for All, written by Karen Erickson and David Koppenhaver, they state, "We believe that all children can learn to read and write, not just children in inclusive classrooms, and not just those in schools with healthy finances, not just those who can see or hear or walk or talk, or who have intelligence perceived to be at an acceptable level for learning." This is what the cover of the book looks like. It's titled Comprehensive Literacy for All, Teaching Students with Significant Disabilities to Read and Write. You can find it in Amazon. I would suggest anybody who has a learner who has significant disabilities read it, whether you're a teacher, a paraprofessional, a parent. It has very clear strategies to increase literacy instruction, and it's how we teach and what we believe makes the students able to learn. In the book, chapter 2, starting on page 16, the authors list elements that contribute to all students' success in learning to read and write. The first one is knowledgeable others. The research has shown that teachers matter, and that teacher experience and skill do contribute to reading achievement and vocabulary growth. However, personal relationships, including beliefs and values, do impact students' achievement, and teachers need to believe and practice that learning is not dependent on physical ability and will occur at different rates. However, learning is possible for all students. The next one is means of communication and interaction. So symbolic communication is essential to conventional literacy. If a student does not have access to symbolic communication, whether it's robust AAC or oral speech, that is one of the things that must be provided to them. However, spelling ability is a critical component of communication. Without spelling ability, it's really just approximations of intended messages, because if you think about it, when you have words that are already pre-programmed or into a system. You have to use the words that are available to you to create your message. You can't just use whatever word you're potentially thinking of. So if the word is, if you want to be able to use be more specific than the words that are provided, you don't have access to them, you don't have a way to communicate that, or it may lead to miscommunications or breakdowns. And then the third one in the list is repetition with variety. So it keeps learning interesting. Good teachers keep learning interesting, and they don't always use rote repetition, but you can use the same text for multiple activities across the week so that students learn to generalize. However, they're presented with the same materials across the week and doing different things with them. The next one is cognitive engagement. And cognitive engagement is putting effort into thinking, reasoning, judgment. And we do this by increasing choices about what students read or what they want to write about, by sharing work with classmates, making things engaging and interesting. It will increase time on task if they are engaged. They suggest using fewer worksheets and assessments, and instead creating personalized reading and writing through large in-class libraries. The next one is cognitive clarity. They describe that as answering the question, what's in it for me? Because when a student understands the reason for an activity and they view the activity as significant, it increases their willingness to learn something new. Initially, this will require teacher assistance by having the teacher explain what's the purpose of a task, such as what is a letter, what is a word, and then it also becomes important because it teaches the student what background knowledge that they need to draw from, or what strategies they need to consider when they're attending to the activity. And the next one is personal connection to curriculum. Karen Erickson states, it's not our job to make students do anything, it's our job to make them want to. So we do that by using personalized books, using age-respectful materials, student topic of choice. Teachers can select materials that represent individual or collective student interests. And by doing this, it really increases the feelings of belonging. It increases confidence and trust when they have background information about materials, and they're able to personally connect to the curriculum. The next element is encouraging risk-taking. So we do this through having everybody read, write, and share, the teachers and the students, so that students have multiple models of what's expected of them. And we want to encourage participation of all learners by creating opportunities and then support for that risk-taking when participating. So it doesn't have to be right and wrong, because when you tell a student that they're wrong, it will shut down that risk-taking. So an example I always give is that when you're frequently talking to a young child, whether they're 3, 4, 5, 6, if you ask them a question and they think that, sometimes they'll give you a silly answer. So, like for example, if you ask them what color is the sky today, you may get an odd answer. You may not get blue or gray. You may get purple or green. And what the typical reaction to that from the communication partner is to laugh, to tell them that they're silly, to engage them. Why do you think that? Or maybe agreeing with them. Maybe it does look kind of purple out because of the lighting, or maybe the sky is, it's almost, the sun is setting, so it's looking very green or red. But when a student with learning disabilities gives potentially an incorrect or silly answer. The frequent response from a communication partner is, "You're wrong, try again," or "No, it's blue," which shuts down that risk taking and also shuts down the conversation and the learning experience. So we can do that through praising strategy use. So if they set a color instead, we can say, "You picked a color. Let's look outside and see, what do we see outside that's green?" Or so giving them encouragement for trying and creating just a very supportive classroom. We want their ideas to matter. The next one is comprehensive instruction. So students learn to read and write in different ways. Teachers need to teach everything about reading and writing in order to meet students' different needs. So teaching reading comprehension, self-directed reading, word study, and writing. We want them to compose meaningful texts that can be read and understood by others, learn to decode and spell words, things like that. We want to have high expectations for our students, and that requires more time and support for many of them, but having the expectation that learning to read and write is a potential reality for all of our students, all of them, and assuming that they're capable of emergent literacy and communication regardless of severity or complexity. Believing that they have the ability to learn will create productive problem solving for teams, because if you believe in their ability to learn, you will troubleshoot when they are struggling or when they're having difficulty learning a skill. None of these 10 elements include abilities or prerequisites of a learner. These are all things that we can do as the team that supports the individual. And I also want to point out that none of these factors for success include a specialized curriculum or funding. It's possible for all students in all schools. In none of these webinars will I support a specific curriculum, or nothing requires additional funding from teams or from districts. So with all that being said, we break literacy learning into two categories: emergent and conventional literacy. Emergent literacy includes the skills, knowledge, and attitudes that precede formal reading and writing instruction. These are skills that are developed from birth. And then the second category of conventional literacy, this is what we think of for school-age children. These are the skills used in fluent, purposeful reading and writing, and are typically developed after formal instruction begins. Characteristics of emergent literacy: awareness of print and books, understanding that print carries meaning, beginning phonological awareness skills, and scribbling and drawing as writing. Key components are oral language development, vocabulary growth, letter knowledge and print concepts, and phonemic awareness. Families and caregivers play an early role in emergent literacy. Everybody should be encouraged to read at home and provide conversational engagement. Literacy-rich environments for all of our students is important. I read a study many years ago that talked about, it compared how I believe it was mothers of children with Down syndrome read differently to their young children, their toddlers, compared to mothers who did not have children with diagnosed disabilities, and how from a very early age that impacted the exposure of to literacy. Just like asking fewer questions, having the kids point to pictures in books or touch letters that they know, things like that, and providing those literacy rich environments that families often do. Students with significant disabilities often have the fewest learning opportunities and experiences that lead to literacy. And this is really important to keep in mind because they often need the most opportunities. They often need many more repetitions of the same information before they're able to learn it. And if they're given fewer opportunities, whether it's at home or at school, they're going to struggle even more to acquire skills. So, whether it's in the classroom, they need greater literacy instruction and exposure, and at home as well. And then conventional literacy characteristics include decoding and word recognition, reading fluency, comprehension strategies, and writing with conventional spelling and grammar. So these are things that we think of when we think of literacy instruction for a school-age child. Key components: phonics and word study, reading comprehension instruction, the writing process, drafting, revising, publishing, and vocabulary and language structure development. Instructional strategies for conventional literacy include guided reading, independent reading and writing, direct phonics instruction, and structured writing assignments. Emergent literacy research has concluded that reading, writing, speaking or using AAC, and listening abilities develop concurrently and interrelatedly rather than sequentially. This is really important to keep in mind because we don't need to work on speaking or AAC abilities and listening abilities prior to developing reading and writing abilities. Learning to read and write is a continuum that really begins at birth. And as we all know, there is an importance in early intervention in identifying and addressing gaps early. For many of our students, they are identified early. However, their literacy instruction is delayed while other skills are worked on. However, I would argue that we should be working on those early emergent literacy skills from the various early ages of early intervention. There are scaffolding techniques that we can use to support the transition from emergent to conventional literacy. Some of these include verbal behaviors like asking questions about what has been read, providing comments such as, look, these two words start with the same letter, or requests related to print, having children interact with books. Do you see a letter here that's in your name? And also nonverbal behaviors like pointing to print or tracking print while reading, pointing to things you can verbally or non-verbally engage with print in the community, using environmental print and things like that. This is a really helpful chart for determining if your student is a emergent communicator, needs emergent literacy instruction or conventional literacy instruction. So the top says, does the student know most of the letters most of the time? They do not have to know all of the letters all of the time. Do they engage actively during shared reading? Do they have a means of communication and interaction? And do they understand that writing involves letters and words? So if they don't have access to robust AAC, if they do not engage actively during shared reading, or any of those questions, then they require emergent literacy instruction. And some daily emergent interventions include shared reading, predictable chart writing, alphabet and phonological awareness, independent writing with access to the full alphabet, self-directed reading, and symbol-based communication. If the answer is yes to all of those things, then we can provide conventional literacy instruction, and those interventions include reading comprehension, word study, including phonics and word ID, writing, self-directed reading, and communication with symbols plus spelling. We need to build a foundation in our classrooms and our homes where students see themselves as readers and writers. All students see themselves as readers and writers. And we need to provide access to robust AAC so that students can learn how to communicate what they know and participate in the world around them. And this includes access to a full keyboard or full alphabet. Nobody is too anything to learn how to read, including nobody is too old. So what are our next steps from here? Determine where your learner is, whether they're emergent or conventional. Determine times of the day to provide more literacy support. And time may be your biggest challenge. Think about routines that we can change to incorporate literacy instruction, or change the way that we provide that literacy instruction during those times to be more effective. And I want everybody to think, how can we support learners better regarding literacy instruction, and what can we do differently? I want to thank you for listening to the webinar today. If you have any questions or would like more information, you can always reach out. That's my email address. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a New Jersey educator looking for support or professional development tailored to your district's AT needs? We offer free, customized training and coaching for NJ teachers, paraprofessionals, and families. From hands-on workshops to individual classroom support and small group facilitation, we're here to help. Visit us at atcenter.tcnj.edu to learn more. Have a question? Contact us at atcenter@tcnj.edu. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content on all things assistive technology.